everybody. How's everyone doing? I see some familiar faces, but I also see some new people up in the chat. So want to see everybody. Go ahead and turn on your cameras. My name's Brian. Today I'm joined by Alice. She's going to be our specialist today, talking about the Direct Treater Dual. I've had some recent experiences with a variety of customers who have a bunch of questions about it. So hopefully Alice can help us with that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Like you said, my name is Alice Pelayo. I will be helping you guys out with understanding the Direct Treater Dual today. And so we're going to start up with a basic overview of what this machine is. This is our pre-treated machine. We invented it to keep up with our fast printers, and it features the ability to both load it from the side and from the front. So to draw your attention to those points of interest, you're going to see that the right side panel can be removed from the machine and the drawer can be slid out the side. This allows for convenient placement of the machine inside your shop, just in case you don't want to have it placed horizontally against the wall. Of course, most of you are probably going to load it through the front. Our front drawer can pull straight out, allowing for convenient loading of all of your shirts. A very large platen is there for you to be able to fit anything from a standard adult shirt to an extra large. On the rear of the machine, we have a drain that when you're cleaning the machine from the inside, and down here at the bottom underneath the power switch, you'll be able to use a drain tube in order to get any wastewater or anything that you've been using to clean your solutions out from the inside of the machine, out the rear, and into whatever waste bucket you have to make it easier for you to clean the machine. Well, I better keep this turned around.
Which way? All right.
This way. The wire's here. Also on the rear of the machine, we have all of our bottles. You'll see that there are two for pre-treatment. There's one for cleaner and one for waste. This allows everything to be delivered consistently without having to constantly change between bottles. You can put your dark pre-treatment into one and light into the other, and only have to execute a few simple steps to switch between the two throughout your day of printing. Lastly, on the front, you have your display. And your emergency on-off switch. The display is a full color 1080p LCD screen, and next to it you have our emergency off switch, which for any reason you should encounter something that requires a sudden power off of the system, you can simply hit this button and the machine will turn completely off and will not be able to power back on until you have returned it back to its default state, popping it back out. So, in order to use your machine, once you receive it, you're going to start by loading up your bottles. Again, we're going to turn around to the back. This is why I asked for the turning table. On the back of the machine, you're going to see that we have each one of the bottles here lifted and secured into place with a simple piece of Velcro. They can be removed very easily simply by unscrewing them and removing them from the system. You fill up each one of these with your pre-treatment solution, and you'll be able to fill these up with agitated pre-treat. Please make sure to always agitate your pre-treatment solution before you place it into the system. Much like your white inks, they need to be shaken up before they'll function correctly.
Very important.
Very important.
And same thing with the little filter guy on the end there.
Yeah, this filter is built into the line, so you don't have to worry about changing out external filters. It's all right here on the line. You keep this clean and it should be filtering just fine. But if you don't agitate your pre-treat, you're eventually going to clog this and it's going to cause flow issues. So make sure that you keep this clean in between loads. You'll fill the first two bottles with your pre-treatment solution, and the third one with your cleaning solution right here. You can toggle which one is active by adjusting the valve into the open position. Only one should be open at any time. The fourth bottle obviously has no control valve because we don't feed waste back into the system. All of the waste from the system that it spits out during cleaning cycles and purges will be expelled through this hose down into this bottle for your convenience.
And you want to make real careful that you always empty that.
Yes, you never want them to be able to overflow.
I let it overflow one time. That's not fun.
No, you have to treat your equipment with respect. And so you want to make sure to keep these things clear at the end of every day. For your users that are using the standard FreeJet 330TX model, one single bottle can be filled up with your dark and the other with your light cotton pre-treat, and this will be sufficient to run all of your operations throughout the day. However, if you're running on ATX Plus, then you may want to also produce 2 additional bottles to get your poly pre-treats in there as well. So just let them be easily swapped out, because again, the filter's on the line. All you have to do is switch the lids over. Makes it really simple. So, in order to activate and prime this system, we're going to follow a very simple system for starting up the machine. On the back, you can see that there is a latch that holds our lid in place. So we'll pop that open, and we'll open up our lid. We're going to turn this around first, though. All right. All right, so in order to get this thing primed, we're going to first open up our lid and take a look inside. All right, so when you're starting up to pre-treat your machine, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you have the correct valve turned on into the open position for the specific kind of pre-treat that you're trying to use. You're going to start off by turning, we'll say pretreatment 1, we'll take the one at the back and twist it into the open position. Then, and before we start, we're going to purge any air that remains in the line. There is a blue valve right here.
Oh, okay.
You can just angle that up just a bit. There it is right here. There's a blue valve. And we're going to put this into the vertical position. We'll turn on the machine, and when it is turned on, you'll see these fabulous underglow neons that we have down here in this bright OmniPrint purple. And after a brief pause, you'll see the display come on. Now that you have the valve in the vertical position and the display when it comes on, there it is, perfect. You'll see that this is our home screen. The home screen allows us to access all possible functions of the machine. The majority of your controls will be done just from this display. What we're going to do to start up the machine is to hit the gear icon to access the setting and tools menu from the home screen. Once we're ready to purge, we'll actually just hit the purge button, and it'll say to switch off the cleaning fluid valve and switch on the preferred pretreatment valve, which we've already done. And then we're going to check the waste tank. So we'll make sure that the waste tank still has enough room for what we're about to do. So don't make the same mistakes Brian did. Then we'll hit OK, and it'll start the first cycle of the purge. We're not going to do that today because we don't have any pretreatment in the machine. Once it has run, it will briefly move forward, then back, then start to spray enough just to pull the pretreatment solution up through the rear line, up to our pump in the top part of the system. At that point, we're going to go back to our blue valve and rotate it into the horizontal position to return it to its original state. This will close it from purging any air. We'll then hit the second stage of the purge. We'll just hit start, and it will purge all the way into our nozzle assembly, where we need it to be for it to flow properly onto the shirt.
It's really important that you guys remember to turn the little valve.
Oh, absolutely.
I had such a pain trying to make it pre-treat with that valve in the wrong position, and then all I had to do was turn it and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, trying to get it to pre-treat with that open is a nightmare, because half of your pre-treatment solution is going to dribble out the bottom and the rest of it's going to come out the nozzle, and you're going to get this faint dripple of pre-treat right down the center of your shirt, and it's not going to look good at all. But if you do the steps correctly and make sure to put this into the horizontal position before you start the second stage of the purge, then this whole line will be filled up with that nice opaque white pre-treatment that we want, and it will be ready to go for our actual pre-treating process. From here, it's so much easier to do than any other form of pre-treating you've ever seen. So what we're going to do is look at the shirt on the screen, and we're going to, when we place our shirt onto the machine, we're going to orient it exactly the same way. So if I pull the drawer out, I'm going to load the shirt with the collar closest to the back of the machine. Putting it facing the back of the machine with the print side up means that it's going to be matching the same orientation of the shirt on the screen, means that everything is going to stay consistent between our placement and the pre-treatment job. From there, we'll slide it back into position, and then we have a wealth of different options to choose from in terms of how we want to pre-treat our shirt. So we'll turn our attention to the screen. On the left, on the farthest left, you'll see that we have our saturation controls. There is a large droplet symbol that we have with 7 different layers of saturation, both from 1, which is the lowest level, all the way up to 7, which is a veritable torrent of pretreat. You then have your ways selector, which is just shown as these 2 blue arrows. It's by default, it's only set to 1. If we hit it again, you'll see that it has it goes both ways, meaning it will spray both forward and on its way back. You can also adjust how many times it repeats the cycle by adjusting this number here from either 1 to 2.
Oh, that's news to me.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning something too.
So, and then over here we actually have the t-shirt, and we can determine the areas of the shirt that we would like to pretreat. Because sometimes you are pretreating an area that is smaller than the entire front face of the t-shirt. So in order to pretreat just the top, we can select the first option below the t-shirt to pretreat just the upper half of the shirt. The middle option selects everything, and the right option selects just the bottom of the shirt. Alternatively, you can manually select which areas of the shirt you would like to pretreat if you want to specify exactly where you want the pretreat to go for enhanced precision and to lower your costs. As we know, every little bit helps in terms of saving your materials. Lastly, we have our start button, and it does exactly what you think it does. Once you are sure that all of your settings are correct and good for your shirt, you'll just hit the start button and it will spray your shirt, and it will spray precisely the amount of pretreat that you specified, and you won't have to worry about developing a technique with your Wagner spray gun. Now, there are a list of recommended settings that we start off with as defaults for what you should be using for each kind of shirt. Of course, those are programmed up here on top, where is a little icon here that has 4 shirts in a small grid. Right here above the t-shirt, you'll see that there are 4 shirts in a small grid. If I hit that, you can see that it has a separate option for light cotton, light poly, and dark cotton and dark poly. If we select one of those, in this case dark cotton, you can see that it automatically populates the screen with presets that we recommend for the system. If you find that these don't work for your particular shirt, this is just a starting point for you to start your experimentation. As always with DTG, budget for experimentation and trial and error for your specific materials.
So the machine comes with that preloaded as presets? Yes, it does. That's awesome.
You won't have to worry about finding these defaults or programming them in yourself. So, once you have everything selected, you just hit start and it will spray your shirt on the first time every time. Then you can just pull the drawer back out and carefully remove your shirt. Remember, just like when we're doing with normal pretreatment or when we're picking up a shirt after printing it, we always want to pick it up from the collar where the front of the shirt that has been pretreated is facing you. That way, when you place it onto the heat press, you're placing it face up and you don't have to worry about it touching itself and ruining your pretreatment's job's consistency. Having finally pre-treated our shirts, and let's say that we want to switch our pretreatment. So we've been doing all of our dark cottons and now we need to do lights. It is as simple as turning off the pretreatment for the first bottle and turning on the pretreatment for the second bottle and repeating the purge process. Once you do that, you can do it exactly the same. Everything else is the same for using the machine and spraying onto your next shirt. It's just a matter of turning off the wrong valve, turning on the right one, and hitting and going through the same purge cycle that I just explained earlier in the video. When we're done for the day, though, we no longer have to deal with the top of this until we are ready to actually fully shut it down. So we're going to close this. And we are going to make sure that we open up the actual machine and clean out the internals. Can you save settings for a certain client or his type of shirt? We don't have the ability for you to adjust pretreatment settings manually to save those different settings, okay. But not for those pretreatments. But when you have a specific configuration that works for you and for that client's shirt, you can save that pretreatment, but you can only save 4 unique settings on your system. There are 4 slots. So to do that for each individual client will probably populate all of your slots rather quickly. So I'd recommend that you save a database of your preferred settings for each one of your clients. In order to shut down your machine, the first thing that you're going to want to do is clean out all of the internals. We are going to remove the panels and make sure that these are cleaned on the inside. Just like with the Wagner spray gun, this is essentially a robotic glue gun. So you're going to want to make sure that nothing is allowed to dry inside your system that'll gunk it up. So we are going to take it and clean this out fully. We're going to clean everything out on the internals and make sure that it's dry and no longer has pre-treatment covering the entirety of the insides. And remember that we have that drainage tube out the back of the machine. And that will allow you to, any water that you use inside the system will be able to conveniently drain out the rear of the machine. Once we're done with that, we're going to turn off both of the pre-treatment valves and open the cleaning valve, which should always be in the third bottle. It should be marked clearly as cleaner. You'll then open up your machine and you're going to go into your settings again, and you're going to run your clean cycle. It's right here below the purge cycle. In running your clean cycle, it's going to run enough to push enough cleaner through all of your tubes and out through your nozzle and make sure that it's completely clear. Once that's done, we're going to gently just push our nozzle assembly forward. We'll remove the side panel so we can get in. And then we are going to unscrew the nozzle assembly. As you can see my hand down here messing with it. So this is our nozzle assembly here. Once we've pushed it forward, we should be able to access it with just by fingers, and we can just twist it off simply like this, and the whole assembly comes apart. As you can see, it disassembles into a few different pieces. And these we can all deposit into a cup that has diluted super cleaner, or the direct trainer cleaner that we have for this machine. And you leave it there overnight. Because again, it's a glue gun, and you don't want to let its contents dry inside of your nozzles. Otherwise, it will clog.
Yeah, with this stuff, you want to be really diligent with cleaning it, because any little buildup that you get lazy with and you leave it, it's going to just become a giant pain in the long term.
Right. Absolutely. So once you have this all off and removed and you've got it deposited and ready to soak, you can push your nozzle assembly back over the back of the machine and not close the top, but then you need to make sure to clean and lube the rails that it slides on that are up here in the top of the compartment. And when it slides along this, you want these to be oiled and cleaned out. Can you explain the drain tube and why you would need it in detail? Okay, so the drain tube again is from a pipe that's at the back of the system underneath the power supply. There is a hole, a drain hole, out on the bottom of the rear of the machine, and when you're washing this out with water, it can collect a lot of water. So unless you want to sit there with a towel and just diligently dry everything all the way, you can use water, quantities of water, to wash out the internals, and then that water will go down to the drainage hole, and you can use your waste tube to drain it out the back of the machine under where the power supply is, and makes it much easier to get out there, so you don't have to constantly be doing drying up work inside the machine. You will have to do some drying just to catch what's left, but all of the water that you're using doesn't have to be just kind of bailed out of the machine. In this area, you'll see that there are rails. You want to make sure those are cleaned and lubed in order to make sure that to facilitate the ongoing movement and friction of your nozzle assembly. How do we recognize that we need to change something about our pretreatment settings that will give us better results with our prints? Just like you would expect when you're using any other form of pretreatment solution, when you get a pretreated shirt and you've properly loaded it onto the heat press, got it dried, put it onto the printer, and printed, if it ends up looking faded before you've even gotten it over to the heat press, or after you heat press it looks a little bit too settled in the threads, it means that you are saturating too low. The people who designed the machine have a couple of different recommendations on how to solve this problem. As I mentioned before, you can adjust both the saturation and the number of ways that the sprayer will spray, both forwards and backwards, and the amount of times that it sprays as well. So by your most precise adjustments, if it needs to be subtly adjusted just a little bit more or a little bit less, you can adjust the saturation settings on the far left side of the machine. Alternatively, if it's a large amount that you need to do, you can adjust the ways just by tapping the arrow to effectively double the amount of solution that you're spraying per pass. If you are experiencing cracking or washing out on the first wash that you have with your print, that is a sign that you have over pre-treated your garment and thus should bring down the amount. If it's fully washing out on the first wash, even if it looked really great coming off of the printer, it's probably you've put on far too much pretreatment, because that would mean that there's so much pretreatment in between the threads and the actual ink that water is able to get into that barrier and sweep all of it away, because the pretreatment is water soluble. If it is cracking, then it means that it's a little bit too solid and there's too much adhesive applying to those specific areas of the print. And so you're just going to want to subtly lower the amount of pretreatment until you get a consistent, smooth print that doesn't feel too brittle or thick. And as terms of your fabrics, you should always equate that a thicker fabric, regardless of the kind of fabric that it is, a thicker fabric will typically require more pretreatment as opposed to less. Thinner fabrics require much less pretreatment in order to be effectively applied. Pretreatment, as you probably know, not only applies a level of adhesive to the threads themselves, but also fills in the gaps in between each one of the threads to provide a smooth, consistent print surface. That's why you get that nice feel when you get it off of a properly pre-treated shirt off of the DTG machine and get it fully cured. Okay, that's all that I had. So I'm just open for any more questions.
Let's open for questions. Any other, even unrelated things that you guys got going on? Any issues? Jose, you should be able to unmute yourself. You can go ahead.
I see that you guys have Dupont inks on your guys' website. I just wanted to see what's the difference between those and the Gamut inks.
Gamut inks are rated to print on polyester materials.
Oh, okay.
That is very much the unique selling point of our Gamut inks, as well as the quality of our white ink, which is consistently award-winning in the industry.
And then we had a couple other questions. One was from Hampton. Can you show how to load a real shirt in the machine, where the collar goes? If I am printing on a XXL shirt, where the extra material lays in the machine.
Okay, can we grab a shirt real quick? I can totally demonstrate this. Awesome.
Okay, let me adjust the camera.
Now this, as you can tell, is not a XXL shirt, but
we don't have one of those.
It will sufficiently allow us to demonstrate how you're supposed to load it onto the system. And so when you say, is it like the printer, I'm guessing that means, do you sweep the remaining material underneath the platen? And the answer is yes, if that's indeed what you're asking. When you lay the collar, it should be over the top of the platen, not on it, just so that we're not pre-treating the collar. There's no reason to pre-treat the collar, so we won't. We'll put it over the top, just like we do with the platen, and sweep excess material underneath the platen to keep it out of the range of the nozzles and prevent overspray.
One other thing that I did want to touch on while we have the drawer open here, I have a tendency to, when I'm doing these kinds of things, I'll lean on
don't do that.
on stuff like this, and that is a real bad move. So I highly recommend, don't lean on this. Did the same thing with my refrigerator a couple of years ago, and it's nothing but trouble. So you guys learn from my mistakes as always.
These machines are relatively simple. I believe I've built about a dozen of them myself. This is just a pair of simple metal rails that are supporting this drawer. So putting any weight on this is going to possibly warp your rails and keep you from properly operating the drawer.
Canon says, can you go over how to shut down the machine for a very long time should you drain all the lines from the water?
Sure.
Would you leave water in the lines?
Well, in order to purge it all the way back to air, I'm not sure that we want to do that to just pump air through the system. But leaving water in the lines isn't going to hurt anything. That's how it's normally stored. It's the nozzle assembly that you're going to want to completely disassemble and store into and soak it inside that cleaner like we said before, because this part is the part that goes out the easiest way. So yeah, for a very long time, you should definitely, once you've run cleaner through all of the lines and made sure that there's no pretreatment remaining in the system, I would remove the bottles and empty them and clean them out so that there's no dried pretreat or clumping or anything at the bottom of the bottles to interfere with your filters.
All right. Hampton asks, how long can you leave the machine on if I pre-treat a bunch of shirts in the morning and print them in the afternoon, then do the same the next day, so the machine
sits idle overnight?
What
can that be done? I wouldn't recommend it, because again, the machine is a glue. It's a robotic glue gun, which means that this This nozzle, which I can't even show you on the camera, it is the slit that is in this is incredibly small. And you don't want this to allow this to get clogged up because, again, the stuff that we're shooting through it is made to dry and made to solidify and to close gaps. So if you're going to be leaving the machine idle overnight, you should shut it down properly and make sure to clean this out and soak this. Otherwise, you're going to end up with flow problems all day the next day.
Yeah, as long as you run the cleaner through the line and soak the nozzle, I don't think you necessarily have to turn off the equipment.
Oh, the
electrical wise, there's no issue with that. But doing the shutdown process is important for the flow.
Yeah.
No, that was very good questions. So I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I'm seeing no other questions that I don't think we addressed. So. I think we might, let's go ahead and show another video that we have pre-recorded regarding pre-treating with the Wagner spray gun. So that's going to go ahead and play now.
Sounds great.
This is going to be on light polyester.
Now for pre-treating light poly, you want to do 2 crosshatch patterns. So it's essentially about twice as much pre-treatment as you would use on white or light cotton. So again, the crosshatch pattern, back and forth and up and down. And I'm going to do that 2 times. And once the shirt has been pre-treated, we want to dry out that pre-treat with the heat press. So we'll get the collar off the back. And then we want a silicone sheet. And we're going to press at 220 for 20-second increments until it's dry. And we're using medium pressure. Once it's dry to the touch, then it's ready to print.
All right. Well, that was that short little clip, pre-treating the light polyester. So we'll catch you guys next week, same time, same place. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much for coming.